Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to St. Mark.
Glory to you, Lord.
Jesus and his disciples left for the villages round Caesarea Philippi. On the way, he put this question to his disciples: "Who do people say I am?" And they told him, "John the Baptist." They said, "Others, Elijah." Others again, "One of the prophets." "But you," he asked, "who do you say I am?" Peter spoke up and said to him, "You are the Christ." And he gave them strict orders not to tell anyone about him. And he began to teach them that the Son of Man was destined to suffer grievously, to be rejected by the elders and the chief priests and the scribes, and to put to death, and after 3 days to rise again. And he said all this quite openly. Then taking him aside, Peter started to remonstrate with him. But turning and seeing his disciples, he rebuked Peter and said to him, "Get behind me, Satan, because the way you think is not God's way, but man's." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
So today we come across a very familiar text of Jesus and his disciples at Caesarea Philippi. And just to put us again in the context of this passage that we've heard, so Jesus is out with his disciples, and somewhere he wants to know exactly what people think about him. So what do you think? What do people think about me? You are John the Baptist, you are Elijah, you are one of the prophets. Okay, he's impressed about that, but he said to them, "And what about you? Who do you think I am?" And Peter said, "You are the Christ." And somehow he affirms that. He tells them, "Please don't tell anybody about it." In other Bibles it's written the Messiah, "You are the Messiah, you are the Christ." So the Messiah or the Christ was somebody that the people of Israel were expecting. They were expecting to have the Christ, they were expecting to have a Messiah who would save them. So at this moment, he tells them, "Okay, yeah, don't tell anybody, but I want to tell you something. It's something that you need to know." And he says, "This is what would happen to me, that I will be rejected by the elders and the chief priest and the scribes, and I will be put to death." And this is exactly what they don't expect. He's explaining to them something new. And at that moment, Peter feels, no, this man is making a mistake. And he tries to pull him out from the rest of the crowd because he feels this is scandalous. These people should not hear what he's talking about. So he tries to pull him out from the crowd, from the rest of his disciples, and he says, "No, you can't say that." In Peter's mind, who is the Messiah? The Messiah is somebody who would come like Moses. He would go to Pharaoh, or in this case, Jesus, as the Messiah, would go to Caesar with his staff, and he's going to perform signs like Moses performed signs in Egypt. He's going to do wonderful works. He's going to tell Caesar, he's going to give Caesar a warning and tell him, "Please let my people go. Let the Israelites free. Otherwise, certain things will happen to you, like it happens in Egypt when the son of Pharaoh also died as one of the plagues." Moses showed different plagues to the Egyptians in the book of Exodus. So the 10 plagues. And they are expecting that Jesus is going to be a Messiah who would go to Caesar and try to do the same thing. He's going to tell Caesar what to do, otherwise there will be devastation. There will be a consequence for the actions of the Romans. And to tell them, either you surrender now or you be prepared to face the consequences. But this is not what Peter hears. And that is why he's scandalized. He calls Jesus aside and he says, "No, Master, you should not say that. You are the Messiah. No, this is not what should happen to a Messiah. A Messiah should not die. A Messiah should live to save his people. And at that moment, Jesus calls him Satan. Satan comes from the Greek word hasatan, which means obstacle. So he says, Peter, you are an obstacle to my mission. And that is what is all this telling us, that Peter had an agenda for Jesus as the Messiah. He knew that this is what the Messiah should be like. So, I have an agenda for Jesus. Jesus, if he's the Messiah, he should do this, he should do that, he should behave like this, he should save his people, he should stand up like a warrior and all that. And this was exactly the opposite of the agenda of Jesus. And my dear brothers and sisters, at times we find ourselves in such a situation where we have exactly made up our minds on what we expect of God. We expect God to do for us this, that, and that. And if it doesn't happen like that, then many people have lost their faith because God did not do exactly what they wanted. Many people have left the church. Others have refused to believe in God because they asked God for one thing and they did not receive exactly that. The things are happening in the way they do not expect. St. Paul's letter to the Romans, chapter 11, from verse 33, says that, oh, how great, how deep is the wisdom and knowledge of God. How unsearchable are his judgments, and how incredible are his ways. Who can give God advice? Who can be his counselor? Who has ever given him something so that he can receive back? And he says, in him, from him, through him are all things, and therefore to him be glory forever and ever. So we go back to the initial question that Jesus asked his disciples. Who do people say I am? But not only about that, who am I for you? Who is Jesus for you? Is he that person that we want to meet on Sunday? Is that guy who we meet on Sunday and we finish our business with him after an hour when we have Mass, and then we leave him there? Or is he that person that we have an agenda for him to do for us? Or later the book of Acts of the Apostles says, it is in him that we live, we move, and we have our being. So, and if he is that, then it is not about our wills for God, it is not about our agenda for him, but rather, what is God's will for us? And at times, there are many times, not at times, but that we feel God is not there because of something that has happened. It is not about what we think. It is about God's will. And at times his will is something that we could not understand. His will could be something that we can't comprehend with our human logic and with our human minds. But we must believe that God knows exactly what he is doing because he is God. He is not human. That's why Jesus told Peter, you think like humans. It's not like God. And at times really we think like humans because we are humans. And if we know that we are humans, then we have just one thing to do, to surrender and submit to God's will, even when we do not understand it.